Am I being insane for getting upset that my boyfriend planned a trip to Disney with his best friend? My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years, friends for a year before we started dating. He is in the military, reserves, so he's home most of the time but has to go out of town for training and other military obligations on occasion, and also works from home full-time while I am a graduate student. He has been on deployment overseas for most of the last year, the timing of which I think really put a strain on our relationship in addition to the usual stressors of going long distance, as I was just starting grad school when he left, and I don't think either of us fully anticipated just how exhausting the workloads would be for both of us. We just didn't have the same emotional and mental energy to effectively maintain a relationship via choppy video calls and text messages that we did during the other times we had been long distance before this deployment, when the time difference wasn't so significant and we both had fewer responsibilities to deal with. Anyone who has been in a long-distance relationship knows that it's difficult at the best of times, and it's especially hard to go from sharing a bed with your partner every night to only seeing them on a screen for weeks or months at a time. Our communication has always kind of struggled while we are apart for a number of reasons, but we have always managed to make it work in the end, and when he comes home things bounce back to normal and we're quite happy again. Except this time, he got home in July and things haven't really improved. I know that coming back from a deployment is radically different from coming back from a training exercise, and so I wasn't expecting things to immediately revert to how they were before he left, but I feel like we have only become more and more miserable since he has been back, and I'm at my wit's end, with this situation being the main point of contention. He has a best friend who we will call Ellie that he has known for roughly 10 years. Prior to this August I had met her exactly twice, but given she lived a pretty long drive away from where my boyfriend was living at the time we started dating, along with COVID restrictions, I didn't think it was particularly weird that I hadn't met her much. A lot of my boyfriend's friends are people he doesn't see in person super often but keeps in touch with via Discord and text, so I didn't think that was too sketchy or anything. He seemed super stoked for us to interact more, to be honest, and she seemed perfectly nice, apparently encouraging him to date me after the first time we met. However, there was an incident around the time we first started dating but before we had told our friend group we were together, where my boyfriend and Ellie were hanging out for the first time in a while, evidently right after she and her ex-boyfriend broke up, and she apparently said something to him to the effect of, "Hey, now that I'm single again we can finally bang," and he was rather off-put by that. When he told me about it I mostly just thought it was kind of weird and awkward, but she didn't know that we were dating at the time, so I didn't think that much of it. He was a little upset and wanted to talk to her about it after the fact because he felt like it was kind of for her to effectively say, "I got dumped, you're my backup plan," and I felt like that was reasonable. I'd probably be pretty irritated if one of my friends said the same to me, but I never heard anything else about it after that and didn't want to push the issue, so I didn't really ask for any follow-up. In August, we start gearing up to play a tabletop RPG with my boyfriend DMing, myself, and 3 other players, including Ellie. It started out during character creation where I was pitching my character to my boyfriend and he kept gushing about how cool and interesting Ellie's character is and he can't wait for her to react to my character, and it seemed like he was just stoked for his girlfriend to spend time with his best friend, which I had no problem with. But then every conversation about the game, planning dates, decorating the game space, I usually make little thematic snacks and drinks for the game, so menu options, would end up circling back to how cool Ellie's ideas are and how excited he is for her to experience the game. This is frustrating to me for a number of reasons, but the main one being that in the past he has run other games that I have wanted to participate in but that I haven't been invited to for various reasons, and he has never shown this amount of enthusiasm for me to finally get to play a game with him. This is literally the first time I've gotten to play in a game he has run the whole time we've been dating, and he has DM'd several tabletop campaigns in the last 3 years. Around this time my boyfriend also tells me that he and Ellie have been planning a trip to Disney World together for January, right after we had to cancel a weekend trip out of state we had planned due to my cat needing an urgent surgery that I didn't want to leave her alone after. I will admit that I was immediately rather upset, and I told him that it was kind of up to plan a big vacation with another woman without me after he had been gone for so long, and we have only been on one trip together before that was pretty catastrophic on the whole. I can recognize that this wasn't the best approach and that I should have responded better initially. I just felt so hurt and left out, and again like he never showed even a fraction of the same enthusiasm when we were discussing our plans before we had to cancel. I was the only one doing research for that trip and the one before it. I looked at Airbnbs, museums, everything, and anything I presented him with was met with a "sounds good. Whatever you want," unless it was something that I really wanted that would be inconvenient for him, and then it was a no. Meanwhile, he's planning a 2-week getaway to Disney with all the enthusiasm in the world. The issue gets dropped. It's clear he is hurt that I'm not thrilled for him, but eventually it comes up in another fight, and I told him straight up that it made me uncomfortable for him to go on a vacation with a woman who has literally expressed intimate interest in him to his face, which he seemingly never followed up on, and he basically freaked out after that. First he said that he did talk to her about that and he did tell me about it, which I really, truly, sincerely have zero recollection of. I'm not saying it's impossible he told me and I just forgot about it, but it also feels kind of like something I'd remember given the subject. But he claims that it was just a misunderstanding and that she was just referencing an old inside joke between the two of them, that if they were both still single at 30 they'd get together, and she had no interest in him intimate/romantically, which I don't really know how to feel about that. From my perspective, I would never suggest to somebody I don't want to have intimate with that we have intimate, especially as a woman. I totally get jokingly flirting with your close friends, I'm guilty of it as well, but I feel like the line is always clear that we are doing a bit. Like for example, if a friend texts me that they're gonna hop in the shower before we meet up or something, I might respond, "What would you do if I was there?" RN, like I'm a teenage boy trying to inflict a game of 20 questions on some poor girl LMAO. But again, I feel like that's so abundantly clear that we are joking and not ever something that anyone could mistake for sincere intimate advances, whereas saying to someone, "Hey, now that I'm single, why don't we hook up?" is less of a joke and more of a proposition. And honestly, I just kind of feel like after she got called out for saying that, she decided to backpedal and go, no, it was just a little goof, OMG, JK gross, I definitely do not want to, that's so crazy, because, well, that's probably what I'd do too if I propositioned someone and they responded an indeterminate amount of time later by asking why I would say that to them. So I'm not feeling particularly satisfied by this conclusion, but my boyfriend is insistent that there's absolutely nothing to worry about because she said so after he said, "It made me uncomfortable when you propositioned me for intimate out of the blue, and she has a boyfriend now, so that means she couldn't possibly be into him." He's so adamant that it was just a joke and he just misread the situation, and that he has absolutely told me all of this before that. Eventually I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall and just end the conversation. It only gets worse once we're playing though. I will spare you the details and just summarize. I made a joke admittedly clowning on the NPC he was playing, and in response he pretty angrily called me a retard and then not 10 minutes later referred to Ellie as sweetheart. At this point I am starting to get a bad taste in my mouth about the whole situation. I have never been the sort of person to think that men and women can't be friends. My best friend, coincidentally also of 10 years, is male. We lived together for a couple years, and we have never once had even an ounce of intimate or romantic interest in each other, but the vibe here is off. Said friend actually also attends the game and agrees that there is something weird about the situation, but given our dynamic could best be described as what if Grey Gardens was just about two absolutely feral stoners in their 20s. I don't want to rely on his opinion alone, lol. I also notice that every time I see Ellie now she brings up something about the Disney trip, like telling my boyfriend the kind of shoes he should bring or something, while my boyfriend tries to quietly rush along the conversation. Our mutual friend at the game asked, "Oh, when are you guys going to Disney?" after one of these interjections, and my BF literally said, "It's a secret." Like, it continues to be something we argue about for months, and I tell him that even if he doesn't think that she has any ill intentions, it's still really hurtful to be completely left out of something special like this when I have spent so much of our relationship spending holidays alone, waiting for him to come home, and wishing we could make memories together. Again, he freaks out, says that I can come if I want to and that it's not like they were trying to leave me out, but, 1, I am a broke-ass grad student, I do not have Disney money. I could not afford to take this trip in my wildest dreams no matter how I budget my very meager finances. 2. He told me they were planning to go in January, which is when my final semester starts. Even if I had the money to pay my way, it's not like I could just take 2 weeks off from school to on vacation and put my research project on pause. And 3. I don't really want to go on a trip with just my boyfriend and his best friend. Like, I can't see how I wouldn't end up third-wheeling it when seemingly a large part of why he wants to go with her so bad is because she'll be able to geek out about Star Wars with him, while I would admittedly not appreciate it as much, as he is a massive fan and I've not seen a single Star Wars. I have offered to watch them with him. To be fair, he has just never taken me up on the offer. I also do not belittle his interest. While it's not something I'm into and not my particular cup of tea, I have always been more of a Trekkie. TBH, I'm happy that it brings him joy. His rebuttals were as follows. 1. He would pay for me to go, presumably without the expectation that I pay him back anytime soon. 2. They don't have to go in January, they can reschedule. And 3. What? So you just hate my best friend? You think I can't be friends with a woman without cheating on you? It's not even going to be just us, her boyfriend is coming too. You really think she's going to try anything with her boyfriend there? You're being crazy. And honestly, it's hard not to feel crazy. At first I felt like this was all such a massive red flag, like it seemed so obvious that it was not reasonable behavior, but he just keeps insisting that I'm the one being unreasonable and how he can't believe that I don't trust him after all this time, that it's making me feel like an absolute harpy bitch trying to destroy a veteran's closest friendship for seemingly no reason other than insecurity. It's like, typing this all out, it feels so obvious that this is a situation, but his insistence that I'm being a lunatic, that I'm being so controlling and vindictive, is really starting to with my head. Full disclosure, I have only really been in pretty toxic relationships since I was 20, and so I'm used to guys just outright calling me a cunt or telling me I'm dumb or ugly and then saying I'm overreacting for getting upset, which I am thankfully old/wise/traumatized enough at this point to be able to identify as unacceptable behavior and won't put up with anymore. But I can't tell if I am the one being toxic in this situation, because most of the time he is very kind and considerate and always says that he accepts that I have a lot of issues and tries to give me leeway with them, but that I won't give him that same benefit of the doubt. Things have come to a head at this point, fast forwarding to last weekend, when I tell him that I don't think our relationship can survive this because it's really bothering me that he won't respect this boundary in the slightest, and again bring up that I am really hurt he never showed any enthusiasm like this for me or any of our plans, and he just blows up and tells me that it was always planned to include me. He was always planning on paying for me, and that if I hadn't freaked out when he told me about the plan the first time, he would have told me that, but I was just too upset for him to talk to me about it, so he didn't bother. By the time he got around to telling me I could come and he could pay for me, if I wanted, it just felt like some last-minute consolation prize, like, yeah, my GF is mad she wasn't invited, is it cool if I tell her she can come? And the whole idea of it seemed horrible at that point. But honestly, I think this might be a lie. Why would they plan a trip that I was supposed to come on for a time when he knew I'd be in school? Why pose the plan as me and Ellie are going to Disney and not me and Ellie are planning a trip for the 4 of us? Why has Ellie never once said a single word directly to me about the trip? He insists that these are semantics, that he's sorry he didn't phrase it perfectly, but that I overreacted and didn't let him explain, that January was just an idea and he wasn't thinking about when school started, and that this is another example of refusing to give him the benefit of the doubt and just assuming the worst. But now he's saying that he's willing to cancel his trip, cut Ellie out of his life, etc. if I will commit to working on myself and the relationship, and I just feel more confused than ever. I can acknowledge I have said some rude things about Ellie to him, never to her face. I have always been perfectly pleasant towards her, but he's always been angry that I would say anything negative about her. I have not been the most mature in how I have handled this, but all I wanted was for him to act like he loves me even a fraction as much as he clearly adores this woman, and he insists that he loves me more than anyone in the world, but it really doesn't feel like it. I never even wanted or asked him to cut her off. I just wanted to feel like they had appropriate boundaries, and honestly also I wanted to stop feeling like he was replacing me with someone else. Now it's my birthday tomorrow and he's acting like everything is fine and normal and texting into the group chat to plan the next session of the game, Ellie included, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm so worried that I'm seriously just being insane on this issue and that if I break up with him I'll never find anyone willing to be so nice to me again. But I feel so sad all of the time now when I think about our relationship. He can be so kind and sweet and has done so much to help me out, but now I feel like he's a person I barely know. To be honest, there are a lot of other issues that have been going on with us that I know are probably contributing to this and my overall unease, but they all feel vaguely like background noise at this point because this one thing has become all-consuming and I never thought I'd be this person, freaking out that my partner who says he loves me might like somebody else better. He insists that he doesn't, that he only sees her as a friend, that he's not attracted to her and that I'm much hotter and he would be an idiot to cheat on me with her. But I've never been worried about him cheating on me with her. I've been worried about him comparing me to her to the point that he stops liking anything about me that isn't similar to her. I've told him that it feels like he doesn't particularly like me as a person, like at my core, and he insists that he does and that it's just my perception of things, but when I tell him that my perception of things is based on his actions he just gets frustrated and says that he can't make me believe him but that I should trust him enough to buy now. This ended up so much longer than I thought it would be. I'm really sorry it's so verbose. I've been sat here for hours trying to compose my thoughts and after many revisions this is the best I've got. If you have any questions or want more details I'm happy to answer. I tried to be concise but I obviously didn't exactly knock it out of the park on that one, so y'all probably want me to shut the at this point. I feel ridiculous asking here, but I don't have a ton of people in my life I feel comfortable talking to about this sort of thing, and also to be for real most of my friends have questionable judgment when it comes to relationships anyway, so they're not exactly the best sources of advice on something like this. Most of the answers I've gotten have either been, oh but you've said he's the best boyfriend you've ever had. You don't want to have to start dating again at your age, do you? Or just a Spotify link to break up with your girlfriend. I'm bored by Ariana Grande, which is not helpful. Comment. So I actually did read the whole thing, procrastinating at work. I am also neurodivergent, so I like the way you write, lol. I think you have every right to be upset, and it's pretty clear that you're not outright accusing him of having an affair or planning on having one. But I'm a woman and can read between the lines. And what I'm reading is that you are having your need for emotional intimacy go seriously unmet, and this vacation is just another huge glaring example of that. I can't tell you with 100% certainty whether your BF and Ellie's friendship is crossing a boundary, but I truly don't think that matters at this point. I don't necessarily read this trip as an opportunity to cheat. I see it as your BF being inconsiderate and unwilling to do the bare minimum to answer your concerns. I think you need to consider whether this relationship is only the best you've ever had because the bar is in hell based on your past relationships. You need to ask yourself whether this vacation planned without an ounce of consideration for you or your need to reconnect after time apart is just a hiccup or part of a pattern of behavior that will keep repeating. This is one of the best answers on here, OP. I, too, read your entire post, and I saw so much of myself, past relationships and such, in you and how you're trying to determine if you're overreacting. I hope you ask yourself the questions that this commenter suggests, because I think that will help you understand better how you truly feel about the situation, regardless of what the truth actually is, affair or not. I wish you the best, OP. He's having an emotional affair at the very least. And it'll turn physical come vacation time. Don't be waiting for him to return, OP. He's made his choice. If he loved and respected you, he would never plan a 2-week getaway with another woman. There's not many that would be okay with that, he knows that, I'm sure. He just doesn't care. I have an ex that went overseas, came back, then after canceling a trip to visit me went to a different state to visit a girl that is a friend. Pretty sure they got married after we broke up. Thankfully I found someone much better who doesn't make me cry. So yeah girl, get out of that. A man in a relationship with a woman should never go on vacation with another woman. I don't care if they plan on doing Bible study and missionary work. A man who respects his woman would never do such crap. Dump him. Dump him now. Ghost him. Go no contact with him forever. You can find someone worthy of you later. Honestly, if you know, you know. And if you don't, you don't. I do happen to be trained in neurology, and have decades of experience as a counselor, as well as an adult woman with autism, in many deep relationships with friends, family, and partners. She may not have ASD, but also, we are just now realizing how very many people are on the spectrum that never would have been diagnosed 10 or even 5 years ago. Including myself. I know myself deeply from being, well, old, as well as in the psychology field. But was only diagnosed with ASD last year. So I would call myself an expert on the signs of undiagnosed ASD in adult intimate relationships, yes.